What's up, guys, and welcome to the I Went to Fashion School podcast with me, Rana Mohamed. In this episode, I spoke with my friend Rana Mohamed about her graduate collection titled What is Your Kabil? For this collection, Rana uses her mother's story to explore her heritage and highlight the topics of tribalism and being a refugee. For this project, she took up the opportunity to create garments using her mother's own worn traditional clothes and recycled tents to highlight the importance of sustainable practice. There is a part 2 to this discussion where me and Rana discuss how we as designers can use our practice to discuss difficult experiences but also learn more about the African diaspora. Before this first part, Rana shares her journey to studying fashion design at LCF. She talks in detail about her collection and her installation at the 2020 Vision exhibition last August.
So how did you end up at LCF?
So how I basically started off was I did health social care first. I actually never pursued fashion or anything that's like fashion or textile related. That was like after I actually never liked fashion at first because I thought, the whole idea, because I feel like I didn't know fashion like that much, and I thought, it's just like making clothes. And I think the only way I started liking it, to be honest, when I started signing up for some clubs, and I started like making my own clothes. Did my first denim. That was like my first women's wear, like one outfit that I made, and I was like actually very proud and happy. So I feel like from that and just looking at designers and everything, I don't know, it was just like the feeling of making clothes for like for someone else. It was really nice. So then I changed it to my A levels, and then obviously for my A levels I decided to like apply for UL. I've actually heard of UL when I from like secondary school, because I remember I moved in from like Amsterdam, and that was like the first uni I heard, and I was like, I really want to go to that uni, because I was very like into art and stuff. So, but it was very hard to obviously go to UL, because obviously coming from like my family, in the background, and them tried to convince them, for me going to art, it was like very hard because they don't believe that obviously like financially it's not good, and I think they're just more worried about like, I think because they're not exposed to the whole art and fashion, so for them they just feel like it's not a job in a way. Yeah, so I still did anyways. So I applied for the uni, and yeah, here I am, graduate.
Whoop whoop. So you said that you were doing health and social, and then in the midst of that you then decided that actually you want to do fashion.
Yeah, so I did health social care for 1 year. And then obviously I didn't like it because it wasn't something that I actually wanted to do. I mainly like just did it to obviously like make my mom happy, because that's what she wanted, and I thought, if I could just do it and just study health social care and then get a job, it would be easy. But it actually wasn't, because it was, the journey when I started studying health social care was hard. Because like I did not enjoy it, so I dropped out. And then so I just took like a year gap trying to decide like what I wanted to do. That's when I started working in like just retail, like fashion retail and Debenhams. And I think just the whole journey of like me going to fashion was kind of long, because it was very hard in general for me to convince my mom that if I like for me to like start studying fashion.
Yeah, so, right. I completely understand and get that, because I think also coming from an African background, they want you to kind of do like medicine, law or something, just because they understand that journey into getting money and you can be financially stable, and it makes sense to them because that's the route that they understand.
Yeah.
But having like you just said, you did health and social care, you kind of figured it wasn't for you. You took that year out.
Yeah.
and then you decided that you wanted to do fashion design. What kind of things did you do to build your portfolio? Because obviously to get into universities, you have to have a body of work to show your skills and your style of working. So what did you then do in that year, or however many years it took for you then to apply for LCF?
So what I did was, before I applied for like LCF, I did A level. So I did A level textiles, and then I think I did like a B Tech level 3 fashion design. So from those 2 years, because it was 2 years in total, I just started building up my portfolio from there. And then I actually started, I applied for a short summer course actually at LCF. I forgot what it was called again. It was like a short summer course where basically I did illustration, a fashion illustration for, I don't even know how long, but I started off from I started building up more my portfolio from there, and try to get like an insight from UL in general. And I think literally from there, they so we did like a short summer course, and then what they do from then is that they would give you an interview in advance, because obviously I finished my A level from then. So I did like a summer's short summer course before I applied for UL. So from then, I just basically done the interview, and I just literally builded all of that from my A level from first year, second year, and then my UL summer short course. I added all that into my portfolio, and I did some work at home that was like my own as well. I thought I could just still add that in anyways, because that's like fashion related. So I just built that up, and then I pretty much showed that to the interview, and I think that's how I got in. Yeah.
Nice. And then so you didn't do a foundation course?
No, I didn't know. I didn't do a foundation course because the thing is, I really took a gap year, so I didn't want to do like another whole year of like a foundation course, because I feel like from the 2 years that I've learned from Blaine sixth form, I don't know, for me I felt like it was enough.
Yeah.
I mean, if obviously in the interview for them it wasn't enough and felt me that I need to learn more, then yeah, I would do it. But at that time I was lucky enough for them, to put me through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and also doing that summer course at UAL also meant that you
definitely helped me.
Yeah, tailor the way you're working as well, and actually it boosted you because you were already in like almost like UAL, and you were learning the language of UAL, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because
that's
because I don't know, because I feel like with UL, I mean, like I actually applied for 2 uni. I applied for like Ravensbourne and then UL, but then I realized with the UL, like LCF, that uni is more like handwork, if that makes sense, whereas like other unis are more technical nowadays. So I feel like, with LCF, especially doing the summer course, a lot of it was by hand, obviously with the illustration. That definitely helped me get like, the insight of like how they would work in a way. And plus, I think there were final year students there as well. Like I think it was menswear, womenswear, but they were there as well, and they were telling us about the whole like course and how it would work.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good thing that the UAL do that, because so a lot of the times like colleges and schools don't really know what universities are wanting, but if you're able to go to a university and see and understand like their way of working, it really helps to develop you as well as a designer. And now that you've kind of like graduated and you've had your 3 years at LCF, how do you think you've grown as a designer?
Feel like I've definitely learned to like work independent, definitely, because I feel like been in the uni for the past 3 years, we did a lot of our work independently, where they would obviously give us the uni the task and like tell us, this is what we need to do, and then the rest we just do it by ourselves. So I feel like just trying to figure that out. It was definitely challenging at first, because obviously we had like a deadline, so it was very hard to do like all of this and then meet the deadline, because I don't know, for me, I take my time a lot, and I look at things too long and then I'll do it again. Yeah, I mean, like I feel like throughout the 3 years, it was definitely the time management and just the whole like the learning, like the block, the patterns. That the patterns definitely helped me throughout the 3 years. The time management and the whole like finding your aesthetic as a designer as well. I feel like I started learning that more through final year, to be honest, than the 2 years. But I feel like I still need to learn a lot more.
Yeah, I definitely agree in terms of like, I think the first and second year was much about like throwing as much new information as they could at us, and then
Yeah.
final year we're like,
Mhm.
okay, really filtering down what really matters to us as
Mhm.
designers. But yeah, because everything was quite like quick, all these new designs, I do feel like we could have spent a little bit more time specializing or just like maturing those skills instead of just like rushing to the next project or next way of working.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's to be honest, that's how I felt when I studied um in the uni. Because
Mhm.
I mean, not gonna lie, when I applied for it, I did kind of expect a lot from them, and I
Mm.
felt like, from my opinion, I didn't get that much. I did still obviously learn, and I still, I would still take that, but I feel like there's still so much to, learn from, like the fashion, especially, because they would like give us the work, and then majority of it, like some of the work we just do independently, if that makes sense, and we don't
Yeah.
sit down and take our time. I mean, obviously, I know that we have like a deadline, but in a way of like figuring out, the kind of aesthetic you want, if that kind of makes sense. But
Yeah. And being like more familiar with like the different techniques or the different
yeah,
developing ideas, and actually, because obviously you can have a workshop where they teach you how to make a jacket, but it goes by so quickly that the next day or the week after, it's not ingrained in you. You
hmm
forgot. You have to kind of, because we don't practice the skill enough that you
hmm
don't feel like you know the skill.
yeah.
Yeah. And like in the final year is the year that you said that you were able to kind of really hone in on your aesthetic and your value as a designer. So let's talk about what inspired you and your work, and kind of gets you going into um wanting to be a designer of that specific or that particular aesthetic.
So finding my aesthetic, I mean, throughout the 3 years was definitely challenging, because I feel like the past 3 years, to be honest, I feel like I was just listening to the teachers. I felt like I was listening to the teachers' opinion more than mine,
Mm,
and I felt like I was just sort of losing my touch, or like my identity as a designer, because I still didn't figure out, what I wanted in a way. I felt like in the final year I was like, I did like a self talk. I was like, I just need to kind of like figure out what I want to do, and if I don't get the grade for it, it's fine, as long as I'm pleased and happy with what I want to do, and what kind of basically what I wanted to show to people. I felt like that was more important, because obviously I think for the final year we were kind of focusing more on like the consumers and the audience as a designer as well. So I felt like my inspiration through that and through my final collection started coming more from my surroundings, so from my family and from my mom. And I started looking more into like me, myself, my identity, like where I'm from, and my like, for example, like my culture, and like just like that in a way, if that makes sense.
mm.
So just finding like inspiration through that, like through people that I talk to as well.
Yeah, and I think like the key kind of bit is when you stopped kind of um just listening and following what the
Yeah.
teacher would say, kind of realize that actually there's inspiration within yourself and within your surroundings that you can actually tap into, and it's not
hmm
always just um kind of going off somebody else or your teacher because they're more experienced than you, but actually realizing that your voice matters and what you have around you is more than enough to create, and it fuels you enough.
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like in like fashion in general, and women's and menswear, it's very hard to be confident with your design. It's like sometimes I literally compare my work a lot to other people, which is very bad. You know, yeah, I don't know, because I feel like a lot of people. I mean, I used to care about like the teachers' opinions a lot, whereas like not mine. And then through that way, I just but it's like it's very hard basically. Like you just have to take time for yourself, if that kind of makes sense, and just try to like figure yourself out and what you want.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So, like your final project, I
Mm-hmm.
guess was you actually stepping into, I want to say like your power and actually tuning into um your identity, your values, your aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you want to just like give us a little summary or just talk about the project.
Yeah, sure. So my project from like my final collection is called What's Your Qabil? And Qabil means tribe. So through my final collection, I've always wanted to, I mean, I've always had the idea of like making sure that when I, you know, make a collection, I always wanted to give out a message
Mm,
or like a story behind it. And I actually started off doing that from second year
mm-hmm,
when when I did my brutalism. I wanted to focus on like the whole idea of like the abandoned buildings and like what we're doing wrong like in the environment. So it was starting off from that, and then through my final collection, um I wanted to make it more stronger by doing something that's more personal. So through my final collection, was Your Qabil, is actually based on my mother's story, um where she's a refugee herself, and it's just like a short story about how she moved out from her home country in Somalia at the age of 18, and she moved to Amsterdam by herself, because obviously in her country there was a civil clan war at that time,
mm-hmm,
like a tribe war. So she was forced to move out with her cousins who were all 18 as well, and they all had to like stay in Amsterdam and just basically had the whole different new lifestyle from there, and just tried to basically just like survive in a way. And I felt like that story was very touching actually, and it sounds, I mean, like it's scary in general because she was young and like she didn't have control of anything, so she just had to like listen and just sort of like adapt. And I thought using her story would be powerful because I feel like a lot of people, I mean, especially like here in the UK, would relate. Because I feel like, because I remember like when I moved in from Amsterdam to London, there was actually a lot of Somali people here that are not from here as well, and all of them literally could relate to a story. But then the thing is, I've deeped a lot. It's not even Somali people in general. It's a lot of like diaspora kids out here that relate to the story, but it actually doesn't get acknowledged, if
mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I thought I could use that story into like my collection, and obviously by doing that, I would be reusing all her clothes
Mm.
that she worn in Amsterdam. She went when she was like pregnant with me and my twin sister. She has a lot more anyways, so I just took those ones, and I wanted to reuse all of her clothes into like a contemporary piece where I would look at refugee architectures, and obviously the camp and the building itself, and focus on that. And I thought, I just wanted to make sure that I wanted to add the refugee part as well, because of I feel like the whole obviously concept of refugee, again, that's not being acknowledged enough as well. There's a lot like to it, but I thought,
Mm-hmm.
I could use her story and just use her clothes in a way of like a memory of her as well, because she would look at the clothes, she'd be like, oh, I remember this, and try to recreate it and make it come back to life in a way, if that makes sense, because it was been in the cupboard for a long time, so I thought I could use it, as like an inspiration instead of just making it into another outfit, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. Because
Yeah.
in that way people look at it, then they can like ask me questions and whatnot.
Mm. And I think there's quite a lot of layers to like the project that you've done and the time that you decided to do it in
Hmm.
and the way you decided to do it and the materials that you decided to use to tell the story. So there's quite a lot of levels to it. So
Yeah, I feel like I definitely had to break it down, so I just made like a brainstorm and just pointed out like the ones that I wanted to focus on the most,
hmm
which was the architecture of the refugee and her story, and like the her clothes, and try to fix the shape of silhouette and try to use that into the garment.
we'll talk more about like the diaspora element
Mhm.
to the collection a little bit later, but like let's talk about like you and the actual physical outcomes of it. So you decided that this is the project that you were going to do for like your final project at uni, and you wanted to kind of focus on parts of your culture and your history, but also on what's going on in the world that are not really looked at or really considered, especially within
Mhm.
fashion. And you said that you used your mum's garments to kind of
Mhm.
share these, like tell the story. And why was it important for you to use your mum's garments in particular rather than, you know, fabrics from the shop or similar fabrics that looked like those that you were emulating?
I feel like using her garments was definitely important because that connects the story
Mm-hmm.
in a way through the project, and also through like my collection. I've always wanted to like focus and on like sustainability as well. So I didn't just want to get like any material from like, you know, the stores. I mean, it's easy to get that, but I wanted to focus on like what I have around me right now and the whole idea of like upcycling and just reusing materials that are no longer needed, you know,
Mm-hmm.
especially that has like a memory, and just try to change it into something contemporary. For me, I feel like it's kind of beautiful because I feel like, you know, a lot of people have old clothes and materials that they don't need that's just left in the cupboard, and then everyone just like we get more materials, and I feel like that's just, for me, is kind of like a waste. Whereas like you've got so much in front of you, but not a lot of people see that, and it's just there, and you can literally like recreate it into anything that you want. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't even have to be like a story related. It's just like the whole idea of like you reusing a material and, you know, into something new. I feel like I mean, in a way that would definitely help with the whole climate change that's happening as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like um when it comes to like the whole fashion industry, that needs to be focused a lot more as well. Like the
Yeah,
whole idea of like the, you know, the manufacturing, like the whole material, and like where you get it from, the resources, if that makes sense.
100%. Yeah, and I think it's something that like we should be considering more and more within our practices. But also I think it's in particular for your story as well, like
Mhm.
using your garments, like you said, connects it to her, but also
Mhm.
it brings to life like a story or like lived experiences. And it
Mhm.
also just highlights like the significance that fashion or like garments and clothing have, that it's more than just a bright colored garment. There's actually a story to it. There's actually, you know, an identity,
Mhm.
a person behind that garment um to consider as well, um
Mhm.
which is very, I think, very powerful. Um and it adds, you know, a different layer to what you're saying. And in terms of like the different silhouettes that you were reconstructing, what was going through your mind like when you're recreating this? Were you recreating garments in ways that your mum would style them, or were you thinking about something completely different?
So when I started focusing on like the garment and the type of silhouette and the shapes that I wanted to do, I was basically looking at my mum's old pictures, because the thing that obviously inspired me the most when it came to using her garments was that the fact that she lived in Amsterdam for so many years, and she always stuck by her culture and she always stuck by her traditional clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that for me, that was very powerful, because she was very, that just shows that she was like very proud that, you know, where she was like from,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted to like stick that. And I felt like that was like her identity in a way, where she would literally wear her traditional clothes and just walk outside like that, and then that's how she's being represented. So what I'll do is I would look at her pictures and the way she would wear her dresses, and I would try and like manipulate that into one of my outfit. And
Mm-hmm.
then I would also like focus on the refugees camp, and the whole idea of like layering, the whole volume coming out of it as well, like the trousers, even like the little details where I would basically, because I'm not just using mom's garment, I'm actually like reusing old tents that are no longer needed as well. So I'll be like using small finishes on like how the tents are being made, you know, with the little eyelid and the cord. So I wanted to use that as like part of the finishing. I feel like it's just the little details that are just there that all connects to her story, and you know, and just like add that together, if that makes sense. Basically picking up little things and try to put it into one.
Yeah, and you're combining with like
yeah.
elements, tent construction and things. That's so cool. That's cool. And I guess by doing that, you're kind of like adding an edge and bringing it, I mean, in a way, making it more like modern and more present by using like technical elements from a tent.
Yeah, because I would like just do small sketches, and then normally how I would start off with my outfit is I would always drape. So I would never start off from like a flat, you know, pattern. I feel like doing just draping on my mannequin and just trying to get that visual, I feel like that was important as well. Like a quick drape, basically. I've actually learned that technique from like the uni as well. Where I would just do like a quick drape and then take pictures, sketch it out, and you know, try to get like a different, you know, silhouette and shape inspired from my book. Because obviously, I would just keep on drawing, and then just try to like finalize the idea and the little finishes that I would do.
Yeah, like a back and forth kind of process until you the final. And then, so you've mentioned that you're using your mum's garments and you're kind of reinterpreting her way of dressing, and you're implementing like techniques and technical features from tents to kind of reflect the idea that your mum was like a refugee, and that, you know, this is a response to a lot of what's going on in the world with refugees. How did you then reflect all of this, like your garments, this concept, to then present your exhibition for the 2020 exhibition?
So for the 2020 exhibition, like we started off by doing an installation piece. So through the installation, Sam actually helped me on this, where I just basically look at my graduate collection, like the main focus, like the main concept of it, which was the refugee camp and my mum's story. So what I did through that was I had a lot of old tents that obviously I didn't cut up yet from my collection. So I used that installation piece. They gave everyone like their own space, and you just basically try to figure out your concept through your graduate collection and make that into an installation. So through my installation, I literally just made a tent. So what I did was I tried to like make a tent that looks like a refugee from one of my pictures by adding layers, and then bring in my mum's traditional clothes and adding layers into that. And then I would have like my 12s hanging as well. So I basically try to make it look like a home, like a refugee home, where I would bring my own valuables that I would have at home. You know, my traditional carpet from like back home, I would bring that in. My mum's traditional clothes, I would hang those pieces in, and then the final finishes would be I did like a small documentary of my mum where I had like a conversation about her and her story, and I would add that as a finish. So then that way, when people obviously come in, they will see like the installation. My book will be obviously there as well. So I had all my working page and my book there, so they can like flick it through. And then I would have the documentary and the film being played, so that they would get like a more insight of my collection and what is it about exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it was definitely challenging, because obviously I'm not like an artist that would like do installation. So I mean, I feel like it was definitely refreshing and definitely something new, you know, trying something that's like your concept related.
Yeah.
But yeah, we literally did that within 3 days, I think, and then we opened it on Friday.
Mad.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And I think also just taking like fashion off the body and then creating this installation and filling your work up in a different space that is not the
Yeah. It was definitely an experience, yeah. It was definitely like a good experience, because I feel like I learned a lot more from my collection, not just through fashion actually, like just more through, you know, the whole installation and art, like that was, yeah.
And do you think, like, if you could do it all over again, would you still want to present your work in an installation format, or would you want to, have a runway show?
Um, I mean, I've never really like thought of that. To be
Mm,
honest, I don't mind doing like an installation again
mm,
because I feel like runway. I mean, it's nice like having, the runway and seeing the actual visual garment on someone, but I
mm-hmm,
feel like it's also refreshing just to have the garment there itself, where
mm,
people can have like a close up and, feel the garment and see how it's made, and then,
yeah.
have like a film. I feel like that's a bit more exciting because I feel like the runway's been done a lot,
Mm,
where like it's nice to try something new as well. See, relates to your concept. So like it all depends at the end of the day
mm-hmm,
on how
yeah.
someone wants to present their work.
But I also think, like, in your like project, in like specifically,
Yeah.
it it added more because you were able to have, the video of your mum and then the
Mm,
garments, but also have a recreated installation of a tent and a camp setup that inspired you, but you've kind of done it in your own way.
mhm. Yeah.
On the actual date of the exhibition, because you said that you had the three
Mhm.
days of setting up, and then you guys opened the exhibition up on the
Yeah.
Friday. What were you doing on the day? Were you there, or did you have to kind of?
So on the day when it opened, I think it opened for 2 weeks, and
Mhm,
because of COVID, only 10 people was allowed to come in for the exhibition on each of the day, and we obviously us as a designer, we had to be there every day because we obviously had to like talk about our work. I feel like when people started seeing my work, it was definitely inspiring because I had a lot of them come to me at the end, saying that, oh, I could relate to the story as well. So I felt like it was very touching because a lot of them, were kind of shocked because they were like, not a lot of people talk about this, and I feel like I actually relate to the story, and it's
mhm.
nice seeing, someone talking about it for once.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely opened my eyes, and that definitely motivated me in wanting to do more that relate to this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I guess also it's in the beginning you kind of it started off from a very personal story, and it being about you
Yeah,
and your experience, but actually in doing so you then kind of like other people also kind of
yeah,
connected to the because they also experience the same thing.
yeah.
Um,
That's basically what I wanted to hear when I started the collection. I was like, I really want to hear people say, I relate to the story, like that's something we always talk about, but people actually don't show it or like acknowledge it. We talk
yeah,
about it for, as a joke, and then we brush it off.
yeah. Yeah, it's good for it to take up space within like the arts and fashion as well, rather than just like a dialogue or a conversation.
Yeah.
And what have you been up to since the exhibition?
So since the exhibition, I've just been trying to like finish off my collection, my graduate collection, and I signed up for a mentor, and
Hmm.
it's called a mentoring matter, and it's focused on um like the fashion students that graduated this year, and basically they will help you with they will basically like guide you through and give you advice on like what to do after graduation,
Hmm.
which was actually very nice.
Yeah, and I guess that'll be good to kind of just keep in practice and like bounce ideas off.
Yeah, I think it definitely motivates me more because obviously try to find an internship now, especially during a pandemic, is very hard,
Hmm.
and I feel like it's very like it demotivates a lot of students into wanting even to pursue fashion at this point because
Yeah.
obviously there's a lot happening around the world, and um jobs and internship is a lot more tighter now. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people, students right now, lose that kind of touch with fashion. Yeah, so I feel like with the mentor, it definitely helps a lot because I
Hmm.
think this mentoring actually focuses on students who are, I forgot.
Is it BAME, Black Asian minority?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just because I literally forgot. It's like that's the main part. I feel like they started doing that more when the BLM started coming out as well. The Black
Yeah,
Lives Matter.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's nice. I feel like now, everyone's waking up now and, actually seeing that, especially in the fashion world, there isn't a lot of black minority or Asian minority in there, and I
yeah,
feel like even through my collection, I actually wanted to use that, talk about my culture as a black designer, because I feel like it doesn't get, I feel like black designers hasn't like been exposed to that much.
yeah. And in terms of like, I mean, obviously there's like the hip hop culture and there's like,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
which is great, but there's more to, Black history and Black culture than hip hop.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
so
But it's
yeah,
not shown enough. That's the problem.
exactly.
So, I feel like, you know, even even with my collection, like I feel like that definitely inspired me more. I mean, obviously my mom's story and the whole refugee and like that's where it inspired me, but I feel like just my identity as like a black person as well, I feel like that doesn't get acknowledged a lot more. Especially, and I don't know, like in uni, um
Yeah,
there isn't that many black students as well in the university, which is kind of sad because I feel like not a lot of them. I feel like, yeah, a lot of people either get like scared to
yeah.
join the fashion industry because they don't see a lot of colored people.
Representation. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So they feel like, if they come to university, like, are they going to be represented? Are they not going to, be acknowledged? So it's more of that.
that's true. That's true.